Hey there, silly geese and quackers. What have you brought us from the swirling depths of the internet today? Yeah? Well, this is Web Fowls, where we take a closer look at the reads that seem pretty obvious, because sometimes they are, but mostly they're not. This channel isn't really designed to roast or ridicule anybody, though I must admit we are not above puns. Instead, we're here to ask, what are we really seeing when we're reading the stories that shape us? Today we're starting with the claim that returns about as often as the reaping. The Hunger Games is anti-feminist. And this take, well, it's not really about Katniss or the series. It's about us. It's about what we expect from stories, from heroes, and from ourselves. And if we want to live in a world where we grow from stories instead of shrink from them, we've got to get a lot better at noticing the scripts that are being handed to us, especially the ones we don't see. So let's take this take apart together, because we all deserve better conversations about the media that we love. Alright, Quackers, hit me with it. What's your evidence? Ooh, you've probably heard this one. The love triangle. How Katniss is somehow defined or boxed in by her relationships with Gale and Peeta. But let's pause. Is her story even really about that? Or is it about a young woman who is handling immense trauma, navigating a war, and trying to keep her family alive? Well, those two relationships are naturally tangled up in all of that. Yes, we hear this one a lot too. How can Katniss be a feminist hero if she stumbles into leadership, or if men like Cinna and Haymitch and Peeta help shape her role? But power isn't just something you're handed. It's shaped by circumstances and by the rules other people push you towards and away from. That's not Katniss lacking something. It's the world she lives in, and the one we live in too. I see. So Katniss's preference for natural beauty, the devaluing of older women you see in the book, and then that Katniss gives up her life to be a wife and mom. Cool. It's easy to reduce a person's whole journey to their last chapter. But does Katniss making the choice to become a mother really mean that she lost herself, or is it proof that she was able to build a life all her own after all she survived? And here's the real question. Do any of these critiques really show anti-feminism? Or are they signs that we need to dig a little deeper into what feminism, real lived feminism, actually is? What is feminism actually? Let's ground ourselves before we go chasing after takes. Feminism, at its heart, isn't a badge of honor or a test for you to pass or fail. It's a way of seeing the world, of taking a look at where gender and power meet. It's about recognizing who is benefiting and who is being left behind. And most of all, it's about recognizing the systems, often invisible and sometimes enormous, that shape the choices people can make in the first place. And that means we're taking a look at patriarchy. Patriarchy can be a pretty intimidating word, so we're gonna take a sec here to demystify it. Spoiler alert, it does not mean all men. Yeah. It means a system of power, value, and meaning that lean towards traditional masculinity, often at everyone's expense. We all live in these systems, and we are all affected by them, whether we realize it or not. To understand how systems like patriarchy shape Panem and our own world, we're going to be taking a look at thinkers like Bell Hooks and Alan Johnson. Their work helps us see how power operates, not just through individuals, but through the systems we all participate in. The system, not the villain. Bell Hooks describes patriarchy as a political social system that insists that males are inherently dominating, superior to everything and everyone deemed weak, especially females, and endowed with the right to dominate and rule over the weak, and to maintain that dominance through various forms of violence. Alan Johnson breaks patriarchy down into three characteristics: male-dominated, meaning that power and authority are concentrated in the hands of men, or those who align with masculine ideals. Male-identified, traits like rationality, toughness, and control are seen as inherently masculine and are culturally revered. Male-centered, society gives the most attention and rewards to men's actions, stories, and perspectives. The Capitol, the games, all of that are just institutions that are affected by the system. And Snow, he's really just a cog in the machine, just like Katniss, just like all of us. Visual metaphor, hanging tree. So, as Alan Johnson points out, patriarchy and systems in general are probably best visualized as a tree. His is the patriarchal tree. We're in Hunger Games territory right now, so we're gonna call it what it is. This is the hanging tree of patriarchy. Roots are the beliefs that influence us, like toughness matters, and empathy is all fine and good, but sometimes you can't afford it. The trunk is the institutions, the Capitol, the Hunger Games, the propaganda machine. The branches are the groups that we're a part of, the organizations, the communities, the businesses, the teams, even our families or romantic relationships. And finally, the leaves are all of us, every individual, every character, every bystander, everyone. And we're all caught in the breeze, clinging to a system, whether we're aware of it or not. And here's the key here. Sometimes it's hard to see the tree for the leaves. When we focus on the leaves, the individuals, Katniss, Gale, Coin, Snow, whoever, we think that their choices are the whole story. But those choices are already being shaped by the branches, the trunk, the roots, and that's how systems like patriarchy hide. They convince us that it's all really just about individuals, individual choices and actions, when it's not. Cracks in the system. Case studies. Let's look at how the Hunger Games actually challenges the system. Not by providing perfect characters, but by shining a light on patriarchy and how it affects people's lives. First, there's Finnick. Beautiful, charming, charismatic Finnick, who has been used and traumatized by Snow in the Capitol for years. His story is extraordinary because he challenges the patriarchal idea of what a real man is and highlights that real men can be victims too. Then there's Peeta and Gale. And I'm not talking about the love triangle. I'm talking about the relationship to District 13. Gale is prized and praised for his decisiveness, his toughness, his ruthlessness, honestly, and his stomach for violence. But Peeta, he sort of calls for the ceasefire at the beginning of the rebellion, and District 13 brands him as a traitor.
Killing is not the answer. Everyone needs to lay down their weapons immediately, or else that's it.
Despite the fact that he is making the call under duress. Then there's Katniss and Coin. Coin models a very patriarchal version of leadership. She is ruled by self-control, cold logic, and an ends justify the means mentality.
In lieu of these barbaric executions, we hold a symbolic Hunger Games.
Katniss is something else altogether, ruled by compassion and authenticity. Her version of leadership is practically the opposite of Coin's, and it's exactly what makes her the Mockingjay.
I'd like you all to think of one moment where she made you feel something real.
When she volunteered for her sister at the reaping. Oh, when she sang that song for little Rue. Yes.
Now, what do all these have in common?
No one told her what to do.
Unscripted, yes.
Now let's take a look at what I like to call Snow's patriarchal baptism. In the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we see a young Coriolanus Snow is baptized into the patriarchal order. At the beginning of the story, Tigris considers him a decent, maybe even a good person. Granted, she's not in his head like we are, but put that aside. But Under Dr. Gall's tutelage, Coriolanus learns domination is survival, cruelty is cleverness,
You could even have them place bets.
and undeniable lust for control. Because as far as he can see it, humans need to be controlled in order to survive. The day we met, Casca asked you what their purpose was, and you gave the stock answer, to punish the districts. Would you change that now? I'd elaborate on it. They're not just to punish the districts. They're part of the eternal war. Each one its own battle. Instead of waging a real war that could get out of our control. And they're a reminder of what we did to each other, what we have the potential to do again, because of who we are. And who are we, did you determine? Creatures who need the capital to survive. By the time he poisons Dean Highbottom, he isn't inventing evil, he's performing exactly what the system has taught him to value. Control, dominance, violence. Snow becomes Snow not despite the patriarchy, but because of it. Shocker. On the other end of things, we have Virus's victory in her games, in the 49th Hunger Games. In Sunrise on the Reaping, Haymitch bristles when he discovers that Virus is going to be one of his mentors. Because, well, I'll just let him tell you. How could a girl who left the arena without a scratch teach me how to protect myself? How could a girl who has fought no one, killed no one, mentored no one, mentor me? She can't. That's all. Haymitch dismisses Virus's survival as a lesser victory because she didn't have to kill anyone. But what he isn't recognizing, at least not at that point, is that Virus embodies a different sort of strength, one not particularly or at all valued by the patriarchy, but anyway. It's these counter-narratives, gentle heroes, traumatized leaders, survivors who don't want to be symbols, and villains shaped by systemic reward that have the power to shift how we read stories, how we read media, and how we live our lives. Revisiting the Anti-Feminist claims. Katniss hates fashion, or beauty. Does she? I swing my legs off the bed and slide into my hunting boots. Supple leather that is molded to my feet. To my surprise, my mother has laid out one of her own lovely dresses for me. A soft blue thing with matching shoes. I thought Cinna was brilliant, and it was the most gorgeous costume I'd ever seen. No, I don't think that Katniss outright rejects fashion or beauty. While her view on fashion is through a pragmatic lens, I think that her relationship to both fashion and beauty change as she's exposed to capital beauty standards. Despite my disgust with the capital and their hideous fashions, I can't help thinking how attractive it looks. I don't even think this is about natural beauty over makeup. What we're seeing here may just be culture shock. Hear me out. I have tattoos, and I live in Japan. Due to cultural associations, people see them and feel uneasy, not infrequently. And then those people around me, as they get to know me, they are able to overcome that stigma and recognize me as an individual person who is not a criminal, just to be clear. Getting over our own cultural assumptions requires perspective, and through exposure, we're able to let those assumptions fade. Katniss's discomfort with capital fashions is a survival instinct, not a flaw. So, Katniss's relationship with capitalist fashions isn't about rejecting beauty. It's about survival, adaptation, and learning to navigate another culture. Older women are treated as useless. Okay, let's take a closer look at this. We have Coin, Gale, Greasy Say, Paler, Mags, and Line. These are all women over 30. The horror. That hold power and provide care and lead rebellions and resistance. I don't think it's a question of whether these women matter. It's how power works once they have it. Does the power demand that they emulate men? Or is there room to lead differently? Coin and Gale seek control. They fall pretty neatly into patriarchal leadership and power.
The pleasure in breaking ground in one's research is one gets to find out.
Effie, though on a smaller scale, also leans into a more patriarchal structure by being very concerned about order and fitting in.
Well, it's time.
That patient.
She's done. She's lovely. We must feed the monster.
But Gracie, Say, and Paler, they build their influence through care. And that's ultimately what gets Paler the presidency after the rebellion.
I solemnly swear, to the best of my ability, to preserve, protect, and uphold the rights of every citizen of Panem.
The problem isn't absence, but the possibilities for leadership in a system that only knows how to value certain kinds of power. The Hunger Games is asking us to see all of these women, the celebrated, the overlooked, the nurturers, and the enforcers, for their real contributions. Katniss has no agency. This is a big one. Katniss notes time and time again that she feels like she's just a piece in others' games, and that she feels she doesn't have very much agency. I don't want to overlook that, but if we zoom out, we can see that it's actually a lot more complicated and honestly empowering than that. Yes, Peeta and Gale do limit her choices sometimes, but it's not bad writing. It's the branches of the patriarchal hanging tree. Patriarchy scripts intimacy too. It teaches men that control equals love. Looking at you, Snow.
Lucy Gray, I said!
But it's not just in romantic relationships or these personal relationships. We see that Haymitch, Snow, Coin, and Plutarch all use Katniss to maintain or take control or to make change.
For the revolution.
The truly feminist work is naming the scripts that are running in the background and finding choices anyway. Agency isn't about freedom from influence. It's making room for choice even when the deck is stacked. And Katniss is a pro. Katniss volunteers for her sister.
I volunteer as tribute.
Forges alliances with people that are considered weak, destroys the arena, and kills Coin. Her agency matters precisely because the system is trying to erase it. Just like we all have to make choices within a specific framework, so does Katniss. But Katniss has kids. This is maybe the most personal critique, and one that I resonated with for a long time. Katniss herself admits that becoming a mother was unthinkable while the games were still on the table. She couldn't bring herself to have children in a world where they could be reaped. Even after peace, her wariness lingered for years. It took 5, 10, 15 years for me to agree, but Peeta wanted them so badly. When I first felt her stirring inside me, I was consumed with a terror that felt as old as life itself. Only the joy of holding her in my arms could tame it. I don't think Katniss's choice to have children was an obligation she felt she had to fulfill to satisfy Peeta. It feels more, now that I'm older, to have a little more perspective, though I am still child-free and tend to stay that way. It feels more like a slow, hard-won process of reclaiming her agency after years of trauma. Her choice to have children and to become a mother was not to erase who she was. It was a gradual reclamation, not regression. Why spend all this time taking apart an internet take? Because the way that we talk about these stories shapes what we look for in the real world too. Accepting shallow takes without questioning the systems underneath, that is how we get stuck making the same mistakes over and over again, both in Panem and out here in the real world too. Suzanne Collins never promised us a perfect feminist icon. That's not the goal, not hers, and not ours. Instead, we get a messy resistance, costly survival, and a reminder that liberation requires far more than one good symbol. In Panem, patriarchy is never alone. It's knotted up with colonial oppression, racial hierarchy, and exploitation of the poor. Collins shows us how these systems feed off each other. That's intersectionality in practice. Gender oppression can't be separated from other forms of oppression. Each one intensifies the others. Seeing Katniss only as a feminist figure misses how her world and ours is structured by multiple overlapping systems of oppression. When we look closer, when we move beyond knee-jerk reactions and hot takes, we get something way more meaningful than a debate. We build media literacy, the kind that asks questions, pauses before judgment, and recognizes that real change is slow, subtle, and always unfinished. If we want stories and systems and lives that treat us with the dignity that we deserve, we have to get better at reading and consuming, not just words on the page, but the worlds that they reflect. Maybe you saw yourself in some of these takes. I know I did. That's why this channel exists. We all deserve to be challenged, to unlearn, and to read more carefully. Not because we're wrong exactly, but because we're worth it. Media shapes us, and we shape it back, one conversation at a time. Alright then, back to the take. The Hunger Games is anti-feminist. This is definitely a foul take. We like to claim that The Hunger Games is anti-feminist because we're looking for simple answers to more complicated questions. As we've seen today, The Hunger Games refuses easy labels. Katniss and many of the other characters upend stereotypes. But the story's real power is in how it challenges us about heroism, agency, and what to expect from feminist stories. But what do I know? I'm just a silly goose.